You think she forgot you because she went quiet? That's exactly where most men misread the situation. When a woman truly detaches, it's clean. But when she's still emotionally tied, silence becomes a mask, not closure. And the more you grow, stay composed, and stop performing for her attention, the more space you take up in her mind. This isn't about hope. It's about psychology. It's about presence. And it's about why your stoic emotional control creates a kind of absence she can feel, even when she refuses to admit it. If you've ever felt like your silence said more than your words ever could, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay until the end, because what you're about to learn will change the way you see distance, detachment, and her silence forever. Number 1. When silence becomes loud. There's a strange shift that happens when silence stops feeling empty and starts feeling heavy. She doesn't text. She doesn't call. On the surface, it looks like nothing is happening. But internally, something has changed. Your absence is now louder than your presence ever was when you were trying. Not because you disappeared to make a point, but because you stopped trying to be seen. When you were present before, you were predictable. You checked in. You showed concern. You filled the gaps when things felt distant. Even if she pulled back emotionally, there was still a quiet safety in knowing you were there, still waiting, still available. That safety allowed her to relax into distance, without consequence. But the moment you stop reacting, that safety vanishes, and without it, awareness takes its place. This is where many men get it wrong. They think silence works because it creates anxiety or jealousy. But forced silence feels hollow. It feels like a tactic. What actually lands is calm silence, the kind that comes from a man who has accepted reality instead of fighting it. You're not trying to win her attention back. You're not trying to send a message. You're simply choosing not to chase what isn't choosing you. That quiet decision changes the emotional dynamic completely. Stoicism teaches that suffering comes from trying to control what is not yours. Her responses, her timing, her emotions, those were never in your control. What is in your control is how you carry yourself when connection fades. Most men react immediately to absence because it triggers fear. They text to soothe it. They explain to relieve it. They pursue to escape the discomfort. But the man who stays grounded allows the discomfort to exist without rushing to erase it. And that's when silence becomes loud for her. Because now there's no emotional signal coming from you. No reassurance, no pressure, no neediness, just space. And space forces reflection. She begins to notice the absence, not as a loss of attention, but as the loss of emotional stability. She feels what it's like when your presence is no longer guaranteed. This isn't about punishment. It's about dignity. A man who doesn't react to absence teaches without saying a word. He shows that his peace doesn't depend on being validated. And when she feels that calm distance, it creates a question she can't easily answer. Not why you stopped reaching out, but why you seem so steady without her. That question echoes far louder than any message you could have sent. Number 2. She checks, then pretends she didn't. You've gone quiet, but that doesn't mean you've disappeared from her awareness. She hasn't reached out, she hasn't said anything, yet she's still looking. A quick glance at your story. A moment spent noticing your status. That green dot that tells her you're active, living, moving through your day. She tells herself it's nothing just curiosity, but curiosity doesn't linger unless something inside her is unsettled. What really catches her attention isn't that you're visible, but how you show up. You're not posting for sympathy. You're not sending signals of pain or loss. There are no cryptic quotes, no emotional performances. Your presence feels calm, grounded, and strangely unchanged, and that's what disrupts her expectations. She may have assumed your silence meant confusion, longing, or quiet suffering. Instead, what she sees is stability. Your life continues without emotional noise. This flips the dynamic in a way she didn't anticipate. Before, distance gave her a sense of control. She could pull back knowing you were still emotionally available. Now, the roles have shifted. You're no longer checking in, but she's checking up. She watches without engaging, and that passive position creates tension. Each glimpse of your peace becomes a reminder that you didn't fall apart when the connection faded. Stoicism speaks clearly here, though not in the shallow way people often interpret it. It doesn't mean acting indifferent or cold. It means acting with purpose instead of performance. You don't post to be noticed. You don't shape your behavior around how it will be received. You live in alignment with your values, regardless of who is watching. Your posture in life becomes the message. That's why she pretends she didn't look. Admitting it would mean admitting that your calm affects her, and that's uncomfortable. It challenges the quiet assumption that your silence would weaken you. Instead, it reveals emotional independence. You're not chasing reassurance or validation. You're simply living. She may never say this out loud, but every time she checks and scrolls away, something settles deeper. A man who doesn't adjust himself to be seen becomes hard to read and even harder to forget. Your peace, observed from a distance, leaves a far stronger impression than any attempt to pull her back ever could. Before moving on, take a moment to sit with what this really means. Silence isn't absence, it's a mirror. When you stop performing and start living, the shift is felt even without words. Let that land. If this resonates with you, reflect on it for a second. Then leave a comment sharing what stood out, or simply type, "My peace speaks for itself." Let's explore the next chapter of this story together. Number 3. She checks, then pretends she didn't. You've gone quiet, but that doesn't mean you've vanished from her world. She's not reaching out, not sending a message, not asking how you're doing. Yet she's still peeking. A quick look at your stories, a glance at your status. That small green dot that tells her you're active. It's subtle, almost automatic. And the moment she notices it, she tells herself, it doesn't matter. Just curiosity. Just a habit, nothing more. But if it truly meant nothing, she wouldn't keep checking. What unsettles her isn't simply seeing you, it's seeing you calm. There's no emotional bait, no visible frustration, no signs of you spiraling or waiting. She may have expected silence to look heavy on you, like something forced or painful. Instead, it looks natural. Your life seems intact. And that quiet steadiness challenges a story she may have told herself, that pulling away would weaken you, that your attention was something she could always access if she chose to. Now the dynamic has shifted. You're no longer reacting, and that puts her in an unfamiliar position. She's watching without engaging, observing without control. Before, distance still came with reassurance because you were emotionally present. Now there's no signal coming from you, no explanation, no chasing, just space. And space forces reflection. This is where Stoicism quietly shows its power, not as an act, not as indifference, but as alignment. You're not posting to provoke a reaction. You're not shaping your behavior around whether she notices. You're moving with purpose, not performance. Your posture in life, how you carry yourself, how you continue forward, becomes the message. And that message is steady, not desperate. She pretends she didn't look because acknowledging it would mean admitting something uncomfortable. Your peace affects her. It introduces a quiet question she wasn't prepared for. If you're okay without her attention, then maybe your value wasn't dependent on her response after all. And that realization lingers longer than any text ever could. She may never admit this to anyone, maybe not even to herself, but each time she checks and scrolls away, the same feeling returns. You didn't disappear to be noticed. You became still. And a man who doesn't posture for attention who lives with purpose instead, becomes far harder to dismiss. Your silence doesn't shout, but your peace echoes especially to someone who expected you to need more. Number 4. The "I'm fine" performance. On the surface, she looks okay, calm, unbothered, maybe even a little flirty online, as if she's proving to herself more than anyone else that she's moved on. But that confidence often feels slightly forced. You hear it in the sharper tone, the subtle tension behind her words, the energy that doesn't quite relax. That's not peace, that's defense. Missing someone, while trying to appear strong, creates an internal strain. Part of her feels the absence. Another part refuses to admit it. Acknowledging that she misses you would mean exposing vulnerability, and pride doesn't like that risk, so she performs. She tells the world she's fine, hoping that if she repeats it long enough, it will eventually become true. This is where many men make a mistake. They react to the mask instead of what's underneath it. They read too much into posts, get triggered by flirtation, or try to call out what they sense is fake confidence. But engaging with a performance only feeds it. The more attention it gets, the longer it lasts. Stoicism teaches a quieter approach. You don't argue with appearances, you wait. The wise man understands that masks take effort to maintain. And when there's no reaction, no challenge, no emotional response, the performance loses its purpose. Without an audience, the role becomes exhausting. Your calm does the work for you. By not reacting, not confronting, not trying to expose anything, you create space. In that space, she starts to feel the gap between how she looks and how she actually feels. That discomfort isn't caused by you, it's caused by the truth pressing upward. You don't wait in hope, you wait in self-respect. You keep moving forward, grounded and quiet. And eventually, when there's nothing left to prove, the mask slips on its own. That's when "I'm fine" stops sounding convincing even to her. Number 5. She starts comparing everyone to you. At first, she doesn't realize she's doing it. It's not intentional, and it's definitely not something she would admit out loud. She meets new people, has new conversations, maybe even goes on a few dates. On the surface, it looks like she's moving forward. But quietly, in the background of her mind, a comparison starts forming. Not because you were perfect, but because you set a standard without trying to. She notices it in small moments. Someone talks too much and listens too little. Someone reacts emotionally where you stayed calm. Someone pushes for validation, attention, or reassurance in ways you never did. And that's when the contrast appears. Not dramatic, not obvious, just a subtle sense that something feels off. What she once took for granted now stands out as rare. What makes this comparison unavoidable is the way you handled distance. You didn't beg, you didn't pressure, you didn't try to convince her of your value. When things shifted, you stayed grounded. You respected yourself enough to step back without resentment. At the time, that may have felt unimpressive to her. Quiet, almost forgettable. But now, against new experiences, it becomes memorable. Stoicism speaks directly to this kind of presence. A man of principles doesn't compete for attention or try to outshine others. He focuses on who he is, not who he's being compared to. His consistency, restraint, and emotional control become the benchmark not because he demands it, but because it's lived, and once that standard is set, it lingers. This is why she feels conflicted. She wants to believe she's starting fresh, yet her mind keeps referencing you. Not emotionally, not nostalgically, but structurally. You become the quiet measure of what feels solid and what doesn't. And every time someone falls short, the comparison deepens without her permission. You don't need to be present for this to happen. In fact, your absence is what allows it. If you were still trying, still explaining, still chasing, the standard would blur. But because you stepped away cleanly, without bitterness or drama, the memory of who you were stays intact. A man with principles doesn't chase validation. He doesn't rush to replace himself in someone's life. He lets time do the work. And over time, without you saying a word, others begin to fail the comparison you never asked to win. Pause here and let this sink in. Sometimes the real influence you had only becomes visible once you step back and stop trying to prove your worth. That quiet shift from effort to self-respect is where perspective changes. Think about a time when your silence or calm spoke louder than your words. If this connects with your experience, share your thoughts in the comments and tell us what part stood out to you most as we move into the next point. Number 6. The late night almost text.